Good morning. We are still studying. We are in chapter 12 of Exodus. We're going to pick up our reading here. Now, the first Passover, we spoke about this last time. The Israelites were still in the land of Egypt, and the Lord gave the following instruction to Moses and Aaron. He said, "From now on, this month will be the first month of the year, and you will announce to the whole community." So this was the first month of the year. We went over this last time. They were to slaughter a lamb and eat the lamb. They were going to, I don't know what's happening with this. This is trying to get me, I guess, trying to get my photo or whatever. But they were going to use the lamb blood to put it across the doorpost, and that would indicate to God that he's to pass over their family. Because remember, this is the last plague. This is death of Egypt and the firstborn. And what was going on was Pharaoh's heart was hardened. So the firstborn of Pharaoh, he died during this time when the death passed through Egypt. Having my coffee is early. So what happened is, this is what happened. We're on 12 verse 14. It says, "This is a day to remember each year from generation to generation. You must celebrate it as a special festival to the Lord." So that's why when you get to Easter Sunday, everybody want to celebrate the Passover, because it's a special festival. It's a special remembrance thing to do. Now, on the first day of the festival, remove every trace of yeast from your home. So you're to eat unleavened bread. The bread cannot have any yeast in it. So what happened, you can get gluten-free bread. And the gluten-free bread is without yeast. You're to eat no yeast. And when you get the gluten-free bread, read the directions and make sure there's no yeast on that bread. It's going to taste really bland because the thing that gives it the really good taste is taken out. But that's what they were to do because they didn't have time to put yeast. They had to move fast. Because remember now, after his firstborn child dies, he summons Moses and he says, "I'm going to let the people go." He had to go through a series of plagues and a whole lot of things before his heart was tendered toward the people. He had a hard heart toward the people, the Hebrew slave. He said, he wanted to make their work hard. When they had to build the homes, he said, "Don't give them brick, give them straw and let them build it like that. Let them build homes from straw." So he was doing everything he could to undermine the lowly workers, the people who were toiling. He said, "I'm doing everything I can to make it hard." So God kept putting things on him, a plague, this, that, every time, just bringing things against the land and against him, because he was a leader and he was to understand that these people were tired. The prayers of the people, listen, the prayers of the people went up to God. The people were slaves and they were working by the toil and sweat just to make a house of straw. They took away all the things the people needed. It made it really hard for them, hard for their families, hard for their kids. And Moses' heart went out. And he went up on the mount. He went and prayed for the people. He said, "God, these people need help down here. They need help." Because they were so caught up in what was going on in the land. They were being misused and abused. And they didn't care. They didn't care. So it took somebody like Moses to see it. And God saw it. And then some of the older elders of the slave, they prayed, prayed, and prayed. And the prayers went up to heaven and God heard the prayers. And this is why he brought the people out. The people kept praying until they bombarded heaven with those prayers. God said, "I got to get these people out. These people need help." Now let me read to you what happened. So God said, "I want them to celebrate me in the wilderness. I want them to celebrate." Now God is letting them celebrate because while they celebrating him, He's going to provide everything. They're not going to need to worry about how many get my food. He's going to give them manna in the wilderness. He's going to feed them. He's going to give them everything they need. And they're going to take all of the elegance of the land, all the things that Pharaoh got in that land. They're going to take it with them. Clothes, gold, jewelry. They're going to take it with them. They're going to take away from that land, because I'm going to tell you something. All those things that those officials had were from the toil and the sweat of those slaves, designing and working and building. And so they were able to take these things with them when they went to the wilderness to celebrate the Lord. The Lord said, just celebrate me. As they were celebrating, they were given their needs, whatever their needs were. If you needed food, you needed water, you needed everything. They said, Moses, we thirsty. We don't. Water came out the rock. These are just the miracles that God performed. God said, I'm going to give you all your needs. Just follow and celebrate me. And this is what he told the people, the Hebrew slaves, to do. When he told Moses, you're going to lead them, Moses said, I'm not a leader. He said, that's all right. I'm going to use you anyway. He said, take your mouthpiece. Let your mouthpiece speak. That's Aaron. He said, man, now Aaron can speak. But Moses had the heart to get the people out. He was a leader inside. But outside, the image of him, he could not outwardly perform what he had on the inside of his heart. But God said, I'm going to give you the courage and make you strong enough to do whatever you need to do. He said, I'm going to put it in you. You hear me? I'm going to pair that leadership, that thing you have, that compassion you have in your heart. He said, I'm going to come along and undergird that and give you a little extra strength. And that's what the good Lord did. And Moses was already at 75 and 80 years old. When he had lived his life, he had to wait for one of the leaders to die because he killed one of their commanders. So he waited. This person died, and then another one came along, which was Pharaoh. And nobody, because the other commander was out to kill him for murdering one of his people. Somebody in the land told him, Moses saw how they was mistreating the slaves, and he killed him. Moses had a heart for the people. He had a heart for the people. It's not right that he killed the guy, but he said, how can he mistreat this poor slave guy like this? It just tendered his heart. And God didn't, he didn't condone somebody murdering somebody, but he said, the person who was in charge when the slaves were being sold, this person got old and died. He went on and died out. His time was up. Then the second person came in. He picked up the other person ways. He was still mistreating the slave. It was not getting no better. It wasn't getting no better. Each person that come in, they were doing worse and worse and worse. So God said, I got to let something ease up here. I got to put a little bit of ease in here. Okay, so this is what happened. I'm going to skip all the way to the end of 12. Israel exodus from Egypt. So Pharaoh sent for Moses and Aaron during the night. Get out, he ordered. Leave my people and take the rest of the Israelites with you. Go and worship the land as you have requested. Take your flocks and herds as you said and be gone. Pharaoh was tired. His son had been killed. The order went out. God said that I'm going to take the firstborn child. He took Pharaoh's sons. Pharaoh only had one son. And Pharaoh's son died. And the wife came and said, our son is dead. And, she said, the command that Moses told you that God was going to take the firstborn child, but you did not. She said, you did not listen. She said, just like all these other plagues that came upon us, you did not listen. She said, now our own son, we have no heir to continue this treacherous journey that we already are. We have nobody to be evil to the people. Our son is dead. That's what she said, because they were going to teach him how to be evil to the people. So anyway, Pharaoh sent for Moses and Aaron and said, get out. He said, get out of my land. He ordered. He said, take the rest of your Israelites. He said, take your flocks and your herds. He said, take them all out into the jungle, wherever you're going, and worship your God. He said, get out of my land. He was mad because his son had died. So the Israelites took their bread dough before yeast was added. They were in the process of making their bread. The yeast was not added. They took the dough. They wrapped their kneading board in their cloaks and carried them on their shoulders. And the people of Israel did as Moses had instructed. They asked the Egyptians for clothing and articles of silver and gold. And the Lord caused the Egyptians to look favorably on the Israelites. So when they went to the households and asked for these high class things that they needed, the people honored them and gave them whatever they wanted. They said, they come in for silver, gold, whatever. They said, give it to whatever they wanted. They gave them anything they wanted because they wanted them out, because they were killing their firstborn sons. Some of them only had one heir in the family. Some of them only had one son, and they were all being killed. And the people of Israel did as Moses had instructed. And they gave them articles of silver and gold. The Lord caused the Egyptians to look favorably on them. And they gave the Israelites whatever they asked for. So they stripped the Egyptians of their wealth. They took everything the Egyptians owned in the town. And that night, the people of Israel left Ramses and started for Sukkoth. There were about 600,000 men, plus all women and children. A rebel of non-Israelites went with them, along with the great flocks and herds of livestock. Now, some of the Egyptians, they went out too with them. They went over to the other side. They said, I'm going with the slaves and the Israelites. They went out the land with them. They said, I don't want to be left here. So they went out with them. For the bread, they baked flat cakes from the dough without yeast they had bought from Egypt. So they baked the bread quickly. They didn't have time to knead it and put the yeast. It was made without yeast because the people were driven out of Egypt in such a hurry that they had no time to prepare the bread or the other food. They had no time. They had to go, because they were waiting to go. They were waiting. And the people of Israel had lived in Egypt for 430 years. In fact, it was on the last day of the 430th year that all the Lord's forces left the land. On this night, the Lord kept his promise to bring his people out of the land of Egypt. So this night belongs to him, and it must be commemorated every year by all the Israelites from generation to generations. So the instructions for the Passover, then the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, these are the instructions for the festival of Passover. No outsiders are allowed to eat the Passover meal, but any slave who has been purchased may eat it if he has been circumcised. Temporary residents and hired services may not eat it. Each Passover lamb must be eaten in one house. Do not carry any of its meat outside, and do not break any of its bones. The whole community of Israel must celebrate this Passover festival. Now, what he's saying here is they must be circumcised. So they must have, a lot of them would have to be, how you circumcise your son when he first come in the world and he has the top of his personal part cut off. His head been circumcised. He doesn't have that extra meat hanging on there. This is something that I did with both of my sons when they were first born. But in here, he's saying only the Hebrew slaves, only the people that were bought out of the land were to enjoy this lamb. He wanted them to have a special communion during that time. He said the whole community of Israel must celebrate this Passover. So the whole community celebrated, but only certain members were going to take part in the eating and the cutting of the lamb. If there are foreigners living in among you who want to celebrate the Lord Passover, let all their males be circumcised. He said, let everybody be circumcised if they want to join in. Only they may celebrate the Passover with you like native Israelites. He said they could celebrate if you go ahead and get them circumcised. But no uncircumcised male may ever eat the Passover meal. This instruction applies to everyone, whether a native-born Israelite or a foreigner living among you. So all the people of Israel followed all the Lord's command to Moses and Aaron On that very day, the Lord brought the people out of Israel, out of the land of Egypt, like an army. It was armies of them. So the people that were with them, that were like natives, and they were not part of Hebrew or Israelite, they had to be circumcised to bring them into the covenant of Israel. So it's a covenant thing, the circumcision, saying that God said, you belong to me, first male. This man belonged to me. He the leader of that man. He said, this man belonged to me. And so he want that man circumcised when he's going to take part in the blood of the lamb. He want him circumcised. He want him dedicated. This man is dedicated to the Lord and to his work. And so that's what that circumcision. Now, the next one is chapter 13, dedication of the firstborn. So we're going to start on that tomorrow. I have to get myself ready for church. But we're going to start tomorrow. We want to know on the next one when they dedicate the firstborn, when they dedicate him. So we're going to read Exodus 13 tomorrow, but the males must have been circumcised. He said, I want them all to celebrate the festival, but I want them dedicated to me. He wants the males dedicated to him. He said, whether you're an Israelite or not. He said, if you just was a native of the land and you lived there and you came along with them when they left out of there, he said, you're going to get circumcised as well to take part in the festival. So all were to be circumcised. All right, we're going to talk about it some more tomorrow. I have other things to do. Have a great Sunday morning. Bye-bye.